Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning to my colleagues, our staff, and everybody across Carroll County. Gosh, it's Thursday, April 16th already. Um, Anybody ever see the movie Groundhog Day? Yeah. So it's kind of where I think we are here. But I want to applaud everybody for their efforts as we continue to do what we do best, and that is bring the best service that we can to our citizens in these trying times. We're going to stand for the pledge, please, and then after that, have our moment of silence, keeping all of those that have lost loved ones and all of those on our front lines as they continue to battle this pandemic. If we'd all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start off as we typically do here. I don't have the latest. Actually, the latest numbers are being given as we speak on this morning's EOC call, and that's happening right now. But as of yesterday afternoon, Carroll County has 252 positive cases with a total of 31 fatalities. 103 of those are community cases and 4 are community fatalities. As of yesterday, Carroll Hospital Center had 16 patients, 8 of which were on ventilators. And other than that, that's the latest statistics that I have. And again, they'll be updated, and we'll make sure everyone has them as we move along. There continues to be an incredible amount of effort by community members, and I know some of you will address that today. I just want to bring up one. I was notified last evening that City Council person of Westminster, Ann Gilbert, in partnership with Grace Lutheran Church, will begin a food pantry next week. And we will get that up on our website when we get the details. And we'll also have a contact number in order to contact Ms. Gilbert. And Commissioner Frazier will have more information on that. He's going to contact those folks and get the right information so we can get that on our website. So that's just another example of the many things that people are doing around our community to help and get us through this thing. And I will say again, the more that we all continue to do what is right, the quicker we will get back up and running again. And we do see that light at the end of the tunnel. So I think that's very, very important. Yesterday, we received another executive order from Governor Hogan, and that one has to do with the wearing of a face mask, if you will, particularly when it comes to shopping in retail establishments and on any type of public transportation. So that's on our website as well. That's something, quite frankly, that I believe we as a society are going to have to get used to doing, because even when we get out of this, I think it's going to be important to have that stylish face mask. So we'll see where that goes. But we are with the governor on that as it is an executive order for the state. So for those that are watching that hasn't seen it yet, please check our website and get the latest information on that. That begins at 7 a.m. on Saturday morning. So if you're in a retail establishment or in some sort of public transit, you will need to have a face mask on. Let's see. Other than that, I want to continue to tout for those that are watching our website and make sure that you are connected with Carroll Connect. And with that, I will pass it right down the line this morning. District 2, Commissioner Dick Weaver.
Well, good morning. I had a teleconference with community college last night, and they apparently, as far as the CARES Act summary, they do have a about $1 million coming to them. Half of it has to go for student recovery or for help to students in there, and the other half has to go for basically expenses incurred in going to the virtual schooling. So they got some help, but maybe not exactly where they need it, but at least something's came there. And, not much else has changed in the last 2 days from Tuesday, but I just want to, say thank you everyone at what they're doing out there. It's really, I think it's making a difference. We can come out of this faster if everybody keeps doing what they're doing.
Thank you, Dick. District 3, Commissioner Dennis Frazier.
Good morning. I was on a conference call yesterday with NACO, and one thing that was brought up, and I'm glad it was brought up, is about counties that have less than 500,000 people in the county and how they're going to get money and so forth. Number one, no one knows when that money's coming. I did that, when is anybody, no one knew. But one thing that the NACO is united on is going to Congress and asking that when any relief package is put in, you don't put it in according to the size of a county, because the fact is most of the counties in this country are smaller than 500,000 people. And actually the commissioner that brought this up was from California, which kind of surprised me because how many people are out in California. And she said that most of the county, I think she said half the counties in California are smaller than 500,000. So what NACO is going to be pushing for is that when any relief package comes up, the size of the county doesn't make any difference. What you'll be asking for relief and money back from the federal government would make a difference on your size, because it's smaller, you'll be asking for less money and so forth. And that's the way it should be looked at. Size of the county should make no difference. The smaller counties in population should not be left hanging out there waiting to find out what's going on. And that's the way it is right now. I'll also say that until this crisis, I was not aware that telemarketers were essential employees, because they're still out there, they're still calling all the time and trying to get me to buy things. I don't understand it. And in the background, you can hear the call center. I don't get that, but it's happening. But on a serious note, I would like to also mention the cashiers that work in these stores that are in contact with people all the time, although they have screens up around most of them now. But you got to take them into consideration when you're looking at the frontline kind of workers. They're there every day, basically, and they're putting themselves in peril because you don't know who's coming through and who has it, who doesn't. And I just want to put a shout out to them. Thank you for being there. Because if you weren't, we couldn't use the stores and establishments that are open right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. That's a very good point. I was talking to a family member of mine yesterday who works in a carry-out facility. And, to get the level of frustration here to where we all know that it is, she said she has never had so many angry people yell in her establishment when folks were trying to just get food. She said it's a sad state of affairs. So, I want to remind people again, all of us need to take a breath. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Dennis, because they're on the front lines there, those folks. So thank you very much, and appreciate your involvement with NACO. That's a great resource, and I'm sure we'll get some answers soon. I hope sooner rather than later. District 4, Commissioner Eric Boucher.
Thank you, Commissioner Wentz. Yeah, I like to reiterate the fact that those clerks out there on the front line are doing a fine job, and they have to deal with the anxiety out there dealing with this situation. So thank you very much to all those people. Also, I'd like to thank Commissioner Wentz for mentioning the food pantries. At this point in time, I think they're going to become one of the most critical resources we have for our citizens that are less fortunate, that are in desperate need of food. So if you're an individual out there and you have the resources, please make the donation to help those individual institutions, mainly churches, I believe, provide food to the community. It's very critical. Also asked Sheriff DeWeese to give me some data on the crime rate over the shutdown compared to the same time period a year ago. I'd like to commend him and his staff and all law enforcement in his county. The data shows that all the different crime statistics are either flat or down. The only uptick is one I have a lot of concern about, and that's suicides. There was one during a time frame, same time last year, 2 this year. Let's hope we keep that down. I worry about as time goes on with different things with depression, anxiety that might go up. So I'm also grateful for Commissioner Wance stating that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope for all of us that we will get through this. Just stay strong and be patient and everything will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Well said. District 5, Commissioner, Colonel Retired Ed Rothstein.
So I appreciate it. And Eric, following up on what you said about, folks need to take that breath. There's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of, ideas, and social media could be used as a good tool. It could also be used to continue these opinions and rumors. And as leaders, I believe we should call folks on it and get the facts, and then establish the facts, and then move on to something else. So I appreciate that comment, Eric. A few things. One, down in South Carroll, in Eldersburg and Sykesville, we're continuing to establish this COAD model, this volunteer model, both engaging the city, or the town, and Eldersburg. And we're continuing to move forward, looking at pop-up pantries, food delivery, masks, medical services, all the needs. And we have built a strong partnership with Howard County that has the established COAD to learn best practices. So more to follow on that. Last night, I was on a virtual meeting with Sykesville Main Street that was hosted by the mayor and town council, and asked for me to jump on board. So had the opportunity to talk to a handful of Main Street businesses on their challenges, and also some of the success stories that they're starting to have. One of it is that they're starting to see the money come in from the feds and from the state. So that's really good news. We did talk about the small business fund that we have established. Some have taken advantage of it. Others will have the opportunity to take advantage of the next phase. That guidelines should come out on Monday, is what we expect. I spoke to Jack the other day, and that is for the sole proprietors and home-based businesses. So kudos to everybody moving forward on those lines of effort. One comment I do want to make, again, about folks that make comments and get the facts. Delegate Warren Miller shared his concern about reopening our state and our government. It's not our government, but our state with businesses. He went on, I think it was WBAL, and he also sent a letter to the governor. And he referenced challenges with small businesses that are confused with guidelines. And I didn't know if he was talking about Carroll County or Howard County, as he represents both. So I reached out to him, and we had a conversation via text, and he shared with me that there were no Carroll County businesses that he was referring to. So in other words, no Carroll County businesses are confused on the guidelines that are presented by the state and by the county. And the reason I shared that is I reached out to him because if there were, then I'd like to find out who and get folks involved to taking care of those businesses, whether it's in a municipality or somebody on our team. But, being clear on our messaging is really important as we move forward. And the reason I also share this is if there are businesses that are out there that are confused, the anxiety and angst is going to continue to grow over time. So please let us know and help you navigate to the right answers. And we're all going to get through this together. The last thing I do want to bring up is I believe we all, as commissioners, received some correspondence from some of the fire department, as far as a decision we're making in the fire and EMS director. I appreciate all those that reach out to us because they know it's a symbol of us being acceptable and, as you share, transparent in our decisions. So the decisions we make will continue to take in the information from the experts and also from the community. And then with all information, I believe, as we've been doing, is make the best decisions with the information we have at the time. So I do appreciate folks reaching out to us with their opinions and with their ideas, with their thoughts, and some of the times the challenges with decisions that we make. It's all good, and we're all open to it. So that is all I want to say at this time. So thanks.
Thank you, Ed. County Administrator Roberta Wyndham.
Good morning. As you're all aware, our permits office has been working in a remote location in New Windsor since around November. And in order to allow their space, it is part of our old building that had never been renovated, to be renovated. And their target was to move back in the middle of April, and they're meeting that target. And they will move back to the regular county office building starting Monday. Now, of course, all the regular social distancing things and the reduced work and all those the building's not reopening. They're going to drop off plans in a remote location, and all those normal procedures that are today normal as a result of COVID-19 will be in place. But it's on track, and moving back, and that's good news.
Okay, kudos to our public works folks for making sure that continued to roll along, especially in these difficult times. You know what? There's a prime example of how we continue to work hard, and even though we are limited, it's reassuring to our citizens that we're continuing to focus on making sure we do those right things. So there's quite a few of our public works folks that are tuning in this morning here. So kudos to all of you and the contractors as well, who were instrumental in getting that done. And all of us appreciate that. Good, well done, very, very well done.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things, we'll be issuing a press release with all the details a little later today.
Part of that light at the end of the tunnel, Commissioner Boucher. So there you go. We're getting there. All right. If there's no more for Priority Carol, we'll go into our agenda this morning. The first item on our agenda is an update and some possible decisions on our landfill operations. And I know that Jeff's on here, and I'm sure Eric and Cliff are as well. But I'll turn it over to Jeff Castonguay to begin the conversation and let him, in turn, then hand it off to those that are going to be part of this discussion. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. Commissioner and Roberta, Eric, thanks for being on. Hopefully Cliff is on. We appreciate the decision of helping us with the landfill. I know there was a very difficult decision last week, and previously we'd asked residents to just reduce their landfilling to simply just bring in garbage from your kitchen, and we still only saw about 10% of the people coming across the scales kind of adhering to that. So with that being said, since the time of our closure, we've been doing a lot of work at the landfill in order to prepare for reopening and to protect our staff as much as possible. We've installed plexiglass barriers at both our in and outbound. So facilities was instrumental in assisting with that. Our Waymasters were able to get them some N95 masks. We've also had some of the staff making cloth masks that they could put over those masks to protect themselves further and also extend the life of the N95s, since that is a hot commodity these days. And if you have one, you basically better gold dip it because you're going to mount it because you're going to have it for a while. Our handheld driver's license reader, we're looking at, we got it installed on the inbound computer. so we can start scanning licenses, because a lot of the calls we've been receiving in before we closed, 90% of the calls were people from Baltimore County asking if they can come bring their trash to our landfill. And some people were telling us, even as they went across the scales and after they paid their fee, that they appreciated us being open because they were from Baltimore County, and by then they'd already dropped off and paid the fee. And so we're looking for a way to kind of catch that before they get across, before they come into the facility. We're working with the scale program. Our program is ready for an upgrade here in the near future. We're working with, we have IT, our scale program, and also our credit card machine holders, trying to get suppliers trying to work together to expedite and speed up the process at the landfill, because that is some of the backup that we have. You know, especially when we get a very large influx of people coming in at one time. You know, every transaction, it can take anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds to happen. You do that for 600 citizens that come across those scales, that's a 10-hour day. The other thing we're looking at is we're pursuing a camera for the inbound, because we have to read and document every license plate that comes across that scale. And it's a lot of times it's interaction of our staff asking the person to back up so we can catch their license plate because they came on too quick onto the scale. And we're also documented tear weights for our large suppliers, for our large haulers, like so for our commercial haulers around the county, for those who have pickup service. So what we're able to do is, as they come in, we have a tear weight of each one of the individual trucks. They do not have to wait in a long line in order to weigh back out after they've dumped. We already know the tear weight of it. We can complete their transaction just on the inbound side. That reduces the number of times that we have to interact with those drivers, but also speeds up and keeps the commercial businesses running throughout the county. We're installing traffic barriers, both at the drop-off area and at the yard waste, because people were socializing, people were kind of like bunching up close to each other. And we've implemented some new programs to promote social distancing. We have staff that we've also sat back and put into place. We're also going to have some assistance from roads to come out, and we have some bullhorns to ask people to politely keep themselves separated, and if they're loitering, is to kind of leave the area. You know, unfortunately, part of the whole thing is policing the situation. And so that's kind of what we've been working on. I guess fortunately and unfortunately, during the time of this closure, we had a break in our septic line there at the scale house. And so we have a good portion of one of the drive lanes all dug up, and getting that pipe repaired in a expeditious manner. Facilities again came in and assisted us with that. Also, we had to bring in a contractor. So it's, I guess if there was a good time for anything the bad happened with our septic system there, this was the time, I guess. So we're working frantically to try to get that open back up so we have full lanes of traffic at the facility. But that's what we've done so far. So some of the options that we've put out in the briefing paper, you know, I know the commissioners are eager, and they've asked us last week to come up with solutions to reopen in a safe manner for our staff, to protect our staff, but also to sit back and, you know, control some of the loads coming in, because it is, you know, while we try to police the citizens, it is sometimes difficult, and we only have so much authority at that point when they enter our facility. So one of the options that we have is to open up from Monday through Friday from 8 to noon for our residential haulers, for self haulers as we call them. We can, you know, and that would we can, and we do that Monday through Friday, 8 to noon, open all day Saturday. Recycling yard waste can come in normal hours, but we will have a lot of the haulers of yard waste coming across the scale. We've identified we have a lot of commercial haulers that have been getting a free ride recently, saying that they're quote unquote residential, and you know, they're kind of use the long lines as an advantage to kind of not be checked. And we also the waste haulers would still have normal hours. Another option we have is open up Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for self-haulers with Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays for just recycling and yard waste from the self-haulers or from our residents is another option. We do have a permit process that we've kind of started putting together that we can sell people a permit for the remainder of the fiscal year for X number of dollars. And everybody can go online, buy a permit, they come in, they hand us the receipt, we hand them the permit, and that is for regular residential garbage use only. If somebody's still cleaning out an attic, garage, basement, or yard, they would still have to go across the scales and pay the debris rate for that type of load. With only 10% of the people coming in adhering to the garbage request, we don't know if, there's pros and cons to that, but it's an option that also gives less touches from our wait staff to have to interact with those citizens. And the fourth option is you all want to reopen completely.
Does the permit cost anything, Jeff?
The permit, you would set the rate. I mean, we've bounced around a few options of like $40 or $50 for the remainder of the fiscal year. And so that resident can come in, if they're coming in on a weekly basis with their yard, with their trash, if you're coming in $7 a trip every week, multiply that by, the rest of the year, I mean, it's about $50, $60, and it's equal to what a hauler would be. So you could divvy it out. Eric, I think you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, you're about right. So 50 would cover roughly 2 months. I mean, we would be covered on our costs if everyone remained the same. That's taking into account, they're bringing in what they would have brought in last year. We have seen that that's not the case here recently. So, that there may be some loss there based on what people decide to bring if they bring in more than what they normally would. So yeah, we figured from what a normal year would be based on that $50, $60 rate, that would cover what has normally came in.
Hey, Jeff, did you say that if the people did not buy the permits, they could still come across the scale and pay the regular amount?
Well, what we do is the permit, you'd buy the permit, and that's for regular garbage, like from your kitchen, stuff that's going to biodegrade and, would attract rodent type of materials, is what the board had asked for at the end of March. Yeah. Okay. Anybody bring in any other debris would have to come in and still have to pay. Even if they had a permit, they'd still have to pay the full rate because they're bringing in something outside of what we're allowing at this time.
All right, thank you. How confident are you that you can determine who's from in-county, from out-of-county when they come into landfill? Because that's a big thing. And actually, I've heard about that quite a bit since we closed this. People have said if we could just keep the people from out-of-county out of landfill, we wouldn't have the lines. And the third comment, I'd like to see how you politely tell people with a bullhorn to do things. I'd like to be there for that.
We'll actually hand you the bullhorn. We'll be happy to. We always appreciate when the commissioners can come out and assist with the operations. We have to mandate, or the commissioners have to tell us to check all IDs. Years ago, the Board of Commissioners had that as an option, and they chose not to check IDs and not have our staff be policing that. They said anybody and everybody can come across the scales, and that was previous board direction. So we'd need that direction changed by the board. We are prepared to start checking IDs. And then with regards to the bullhorn, it's just from a distance, just asking people to please no loitering, please keep your distance. We're trying, for your safety, we're trying to keep it nice and polite and lighthearted as best as we can with a bullhorn.
Dennis needs something to do anyway.
So my thoughts are that, again, as I shared the other day, focusing attention on getting the information out is going to be very important. I do believe most people want to be compliant and rule abiding and law abiding. So if we provide that information to deter folks from coming in from out of county, that's a good step. I do think checking IDs, and saying we're going to be checking IDs so people do not waste their time going up there and from out of county. But you got to start with the information and getting it out there very clear. I like the first option as far as the Monday through Friday, 8 to 12, and Saturday all day. But I think what we may want to look at is, if feasible, doing it Monday, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 12, and then Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 4 or something like that. Because some folks have opportunities in the morning when other folks, because of what they're doing, don't have those opportunities and would have them in the evening. So if we curtail the hours like you're doing to limit it, but you say like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 12, and then a Tuesday, Thursday, 1 to 5, or whatever you all come up with, and then Saturday all day. But I think information is really important to get out there and share it. And that will deter some. It's not going to deter all. People will still try to take advantage, but that's okay. I mean, that's a risk that, we should be willing to take, because like I said, I feel like most people want to be compliant and most people want to do what's right. So those are my thoughts.
No, and thank you. And those are great thoughts. Just to give you the background of why we chose from 8 to 12 is our commercial haulers will typically come in from between 7 and 8 in the morning with whatever their last load was from the previous day. They'll come in and unload those, and then they're gone for the next 3 to 4 hours out there, out in the, throughout the county, picking up trash. And usually about noon, starting about noon, we start seeing a pickup of them coming back into the facility in large numbers. Same thing with even our hauler that's bringing stuff out of state. They're coming back from the first round of unloading. So it's just to reduce the amount of people on the inbound scale, so we can allow our commercial haulers, commercial businesses to come in and be able to conduct business without being stuck in long lines. So that'll get back onto that.
That makes perfect sense. And that's why I would limit it to maybe 2 days a week as opposed to all the days for afternoon. But again, part of that information is to encourage folks to take advantage of the smaller lines and quicker opportunities going 8 to 12. But give them the option, saying, hey, you may be out there for a long time because of the throughput of commercial haulers, but we want to give you this opportunity because we understand that, you may be tied up 8 to 12 and because of their work. So, okay.
Hey, Jeff, have we done anything about putting signs up at the landfill about county residents only? We had talked about that last week. I know it's quick, but is that in the process of happening? Because I'm in favor, I think Commissioner Rothstein said the same thing, of checking IDs, but I would like to have something there, signage up, and let it be known that we're checking IDs. You're not coming through here dumping trash unless you're a county resident.
We have a few VMS boards right now at the facility that we can put up. We can change the wording on that immediately. And we can, the roads department, our roads bureau has been great of making signs for us in a very quick manner. So we've been very appreciative of their assistance, so we can have them make some signs up. We have to be cautious that if, the more we could sit back and make the place, look like Route 95 heading south to all the boards on the side of the road, trying to read them all as you're coming in. We get too many signs up. So we're trying to, we have to be selective in how we put that in. But yes, we can definitely put something at the gate, entrance gates saying county residents only.
I do believe, Commissioner Rothstein had a good point here. We do need some evening days in there. We have a lot of people that work early or gone, and they need to have at least a couple days a week in the afternoons they can drop things off. You have some good ideas. I really appreciate what you guys have done. Is it possible to have this up and running by, say, Monday?
Yes, yeah, that's not a
Yes,
problem.
Commissioner, we could absolutely run it.
That's what we're gearing up to do.
One thing I would ask though is if you could allow it to us now that I hear Cliff's on, but our haulers are heavy volume on Tuesdays, so we would probably not like to open that up on Tuesday afternoons. But we can work out the days if you allow us to do that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you get the intent. Again, encouraging residents to use the landfill in like the less busy times of commercial haulers, but make it available for them on whatever, it could be on Monday, Friday. That you got the intent, just to give flexibility to our community. But again, that information is very important to encourage those non-residents. Don't come out here because you're going to be turned away, and it's going to cause more frustration than anything else. Again, that's just part of the information sharing.
The commissioners, as Jeff had mentioned, we have the variable message boards. We also have several sign orders already into the sign shop. I think we're going to be keeping them pretty busy, which is a good thing. But those other signs that were mentioned about ID check, which is a good one, what we take, where to go, those are drawing up as we speak. And those orders will be going into the sign shop to be completed. Just one thing to note on too, with the ID check, yeah, we are set up now to be able to do that. And there are some improvements that we can make over time. Just from the standpoint of how many people that are coming in now are out of county, out of state, there are some. I don't want anybody to take away the idea that that's what's caused the lines. It certainly has not. I don't know what percentage it is, but if it's over a couple percent, I think I'd be surprised at this time.
I have to say, even if it's not a large percentage, the fact is Carroll County taxpayers are paying for that landfill. That's all our tax money. We should not be allowing people from outside the county to use it. And
I agree.
I mean, until we can, and you said we can check the IDs now. My suggestion is we start that as soon as we reopen this, we check the IDs. But before it's reopened, signage has to be up there so people don't drive up and think that they're going to go get in it without knowing before they get in the gate. So signage has to be up first, and we're starting to check IDs. That would be my recommendation on both those things.
Absolutely agree.
And a thought that the board can think about in the future, if if out of county want to use the landfill, that you all can talk offline or determine how you want to look at it. As it's $7 for a regular load for our citizens right now. If you're out of county, that's a minimum $20 load or something that covers more of the costs. It's just an option out there that if you put a premium fee out there, but that's something that has to, you all have to determine and also go to public hearing on.
And to be frank, Jeff, well, that's a good idea. I'm more interested in preserving this amount of space we have in landfill because it's a finite space. I want the finite space to be used for Carroll County residents.
100% agree. Thank you.
Well, Jeff, Eric, and Cliff, I really want to thank you for the list of measures you guys took and put in place during the shutdown to help protect not only your employees, but the public. That was a wonderful list, so you've done a good job. Out of the options listed, what do you guys professionally recommend would be the best? What do you guys favor?
Oh, you're just teeing this up for me again, aren't you? No, I mean, I like Mr. Rothstein's idea, idea of going a few days a week, minimum, limited hours. So this way we still we don't have the long lines during the week for all of our commercial haulers and commercial businesses that are still trying to conduct their regular day-to-day business, since right now capacity is a lot larger just because people are home and looking for a place to get out for a few minutes. So, I mean, I would say limited time frames during the week would definitely, I think that could work. So I would say that would be an idea that I concur with Commissioner Rothstein on that idea.
So I appreciate that. So before making a motion, I just want to also share the other day, a couple weeks ago, we forgot to put our garbage and recycling out for the haulers to take. Our recycling bin just got completely stuffed, and we really try hard to do recycling. Another hauler came by a couple days later, and I happened to catch him. And I mean, I said, "Listen, man, can you empty this as we're going to continue to try to recycle?" And he said, "Absolutely no problem." It's amazing what we can get done with a little bit of honey and less vinegar. And a lot of folks are just trying to do the right thing. So I'm going to continue to recycle the bin, and just it was a great gesture on his part. So I just wanted to share that people around here are trying to do what's good for everybody. I'd like to make the motion that we go with option one, with the Monday, what you shared, the Monday through Friday, 8 to 12, and Saturday all day. However, modify it with the intent that you put in a couple of afternoons throughout the week, and encourage folks to go when there's less commercial haulers at the yard or at the landfill. And getting any more specific than that, at this time, you have to figure it out. So if it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, great. If it's Mondays, Fridays, you got the intent to take care of our community. So is that good enough for a motion?
I second that one.
Does that motion, I don't have the paperwork in front of me and my phone's charging, by the way. Does that have in it the check-in IDs? Is that in that option? Because I know one of the options had something in there about check-in IDs. Is that in there as well?
I would like to, if necessary, modify that motion to check IDs. And again, a large part of this has to be with the encouraging of non-county residents to stay away.
That has scanning license in it, doesn't it, Jeff?
I apologize, Commissioner.
You're scanning the license. Yeah. That one, option one has the license scan on it.
Specifically, but
Yeah,
no, it's not specifically listed in that option. But your motion can add that. That's no problem.
Okay, so Ed, that's what you did, right? You added that option? Yeah, okay. So that option's in there, Eric and Jeff and Cliff. My only question is, where once you check that ID, aren't they already on the scale?
yes.
We can check it before it gets there.
That's why we need the signage up at the gate. They're going to see the sign at the gate. If they choose to ignore the sign and go through anyway, then they just get turned away. I know, and after you do that a few times, I don't think the people are going to be ignoring the signs.
And in the early part of the restart, we can also dedicate somebody, as we're doing right now, greeting everybody who's coming in. We can be doing a partial or full check, not far inside the gate where they have enough room to turn around.
Yeah, we can promote the distance at the scale house, and that's what the computer is that's connected, that says whether, when we scan it, it tells us what county they live in. It's connected to the computers at the scale house. So that's why anything else would be we'd have to physically check it at the gate. And that's just more interaction with the citizens and probably closer distance than we have at the scale house itself. So while it'd be a little difficult to police, to make sure people if we say, sorry, you can't come in here, you're out of county, we could do our best to have some people, staff to help redirect people outside, after that scale house, after they pass the scale house. We can put something in place.
Yeah, during this time, I think especially it's critically important because every other surrounding county has shut their landfills down indefinitely. I think that's a point that a lot of people missed. We only took a brief break here in an attempt to try to get some things in place, and that's what we're doing. So I think it's critical to make sure, I agree with Commissioner Frazier, that is a critical step to ensure that our citizens are the ones that are using it because our citizens are the ones that are paying the bills. So just to this would reopen then, Commissioner Rothstein, your motion includes that would be reopening on Monday, is that right?
That is correct. It is a hybrid between the two options, checking the IDs, but then the Monday through Friday, the 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the afternoon, for them to decide which days to use. But yes, and starting Monday.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Besides me saying, I especially want to thank all of you for coming up with these plans. You did exactly what we had asked, and that was taking a brief moment of time to come up with ways in which we could safely protect our staff and also our citizens. And I want to really thank you all for that. It's been a trying week. Any other questions or comments?
I'm glad your yard didn't become the dump.
I have to say, I did my podcast on Monday, talked about the landfill, makes most of it mute. That's all I can tell you. So we did the right things here.
Okay, thank you all very much. With all that being said, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much for all your hard work on that, guys, and we wish you the best of luck. And you did a great job.
Thank you all for working so close with us, also giving us the opportunity and the time to kind of hit the Control-Alt-Delete button on this. A special thank you to Dwight Amos at the landfill and also the Scalehouse staff. The Scalehouse staff are the front lines and our drivers out there, and they helped us come up with some of these options as we looked at, these operational changes. So a special thank you to all of them, our front line, because they really stepped up to the plate also.
Dwight's the man.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep, thanks. All right, next on our agenda is hot mix asphalt paving. And I believe I've got Chris Lechnachin. Yep, there's Chris. He's up top there. I got Chris listed here. Chris, I'll turn this one over to you. Good morning.
Okay, I think Mike's going to start.
Yep, good morning, Commissioners. A few weeks ago, we came to you with the first batch of road paving projects for fiscal year 2020. This is going to be the second batch. County went out to bid. We received 3 bids, same bidders, but a different low bidder in this case. So with that, we'd like to award the contract to MT Laney in the amount of $5,817,652.86.
Okay, thank you, Mike. As Mike said, this is our second pavement preservation contract. Work includes some full depth reclamation, milling of pavement, placement of hot mix base and surface courses, pipe replacements, some ADA improvements, some shoulder backup, and maintenance of traffic. Project includes 100 working days. There are 29 roadways in this project, a totaling of 18.7 miles. Most of these roadways are in the central and southern part of the county. The previous contract was our northern part of the county. I can read a list of the roads, but there are 29 of them. You should have some in your briefing packet. Let me know if you want me to read them or not.
As long as you're in the central part of the county, it's all good.
I like the fact they're a bunch are in my district.
Yeah, I don't. Based on those 2 comments, I don't think we need to hear the roads. Anyway.
Not a problem.
Okay. Any questions for Mike or Chris?
Well, I move that the Board of Commissioners award the contract for the 2020 hot mix asphalt paving to MT Laney Company Incorporated in the amount of $5,817,652.86.
Second.
Okay. And again, since I've been in this seat, I've always had a little bit of challenge with the hot mix asphalt, but I think it's proven to be good, and it's also been the most fiscally responsible way to take care of our roadways. So I don't know if there's a need to go into the explanation of hot mix, but sometimes our citizens aren't exactly enamored with that procedure, but I believe it's proven to be a good process. Any questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you all very much. Mike, thank you. Chris, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we move to a Community Development Block Grant Award, and our Director of Citizen Services, Celine Steckel. And Celine, we'll start with you, and maybe since we've got you on here, give us an update on your efforts, especially as it pertains to the respite area.
Absolutely, and I will address that through this presentation because this funding directly relates to that. So I am here today with Danielle Yates, our Bureau Chief for Housing and Community Connections, and also Debbie Staniford, our Grants Manager for the county. We are seeking approval to accept the FY21 Community Development Supplemental Community Development Block Grant Supplemental Funding. These funds were funds that were recovered from unspent funds, and they reached out to Carroll County to see if we had an immediate use for them, and certainly we do. These funds are specifically earmarked for immediate support to protect our county's homeless community during this COVID-19 pandemic. Citizen Services, alongside Debbie Staniford, has aggressively worked to prioritize these funds to best support not only our efforts to keep the homeless population safe during this pandemic, but also to alleviate the strain on some of our other overburdened systems during this pandemic. So I want to talk about what we've allocated or we are proposing that these funds be awarded for. The first is to develop, as you mentioned, an emergency homeless medical respite for individuals who may be either diagnosed with COVID and need a place to convalesce because they're not at a point where they need hospitalization. Also people that may have tested for COVID and are awaiting test results, and also for people that need general medical respite to release that strain on the hospital system so that the hospital can discharge these individuals safely and they can come to this medical respite while they convalesce. So we are currently working with Access Carroll as the provider to operate that medical respite. We have a site on the campus at East Middle School. We have right now 3 individuals that are utilizing that service. Right now, we have no one in the homeless population known to have COVID or known to have just been tested and awaiting results. So we are using that currently for general medical respite, but we are fully able to, it's fully staffed 24/7. We have great support from the school system, as well as the local Westminster Police Department and our Sheriff's Department doing rounds to ensure the security and the safety of the staff and residents there. We also have indoor and outdoor options. The goal of the medical respite is really to be able to provide an area where the pandemic will not spread. We have designed, with the assistance of our Department of Public Works here with the county, different encampment sites on the sports field there that are 40 by 40 encampment sites with 12 feet in between each in aisles areas that are clearly marked to make sure that if people are coming in there and they do need to be supported there, they are not spreading the pandemic further. So we are clearly marking this area. I know there was an article in the newspaper today regarding this, but this has been a great collaborative effort between everyone involved, from county support to the school system support to Access Carroll, who is manning the 24-hour operations with some support from volunteers and some other agencies as well. It's just been a phenomenal experience so far. So we are allocating for equipment and supplies for that $58,750 out of this award. We also have, as far as the homeless encampments, the naturally occurring encampments, we have allocated $10,000 from this award for that. We are also increasing our outreach effort and case management efforts to those encampments to ensure that these individuals have what they need during this crisis. We're also providing additional hand sanitizers and other sanitation supplies to them, along with food and water. So that would be 10,000 towards that support. The other piece that we have done is we have installed near those encampments sanitation supplies, as far as hand washing stations and porta potties, to ensure that these folks have access to be more sanitized in their efforts as they try to avoid this pandemic. We also have looked at the population that we have in our shelter and home street homeless system, and identified our top 5 most vulnerable individuals as far as most vulnerable to be susceptible to the pandemic, to the COVID-19. We were able to look at those individuals and move them into hotel stays at this point. And we are allocating $21,250 for that purchase of the hotel experience for those individuals. And we also have, as I know you are all aware, we have the day shelter that is operating out of the Westminster Senior Center from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. each day. Again, and that's operated by Human Services Programs. And we have allocated $10,000 in supplies and salaries to support that out of this funding as well. And that support at the day shelter is providing a touchback for individuals. It's also providing job search assistance if needed, helping people look for housing, because the goal in all of this is never lost, that we're trying to get these people housed even in this pandemic. So we are here before you, as I said, asking for your support and approval for us to accept this allocation.
Okay, just to let everybody know, we've had very few bugs as we've attempted to do these virtual sessions, but we are now encountering one as we speak. We've lost one of our colleagues, Commissioner Boucher. So we're going to have to, out of respect for him, we need to just pause here for a moment and attempt to get him on the phone so that he can be a part of this discussion. So Roberta, can you please try to get Eric on the phone?
Yep, we're working on it.
Okay, so we need to, with all due respect here for Commissioner Boucher, we need to pause here for a moment, folks. So let's take a minute or two until our IT folks can get this back to where it needs to be. So.
And there goes Frazier.
Hey, Danielle.
Yes.
You're not muted, so you might want to mute your mic on your screen. There you go. Thank you. All right, we're to our viewing audience. We're taking a moment here in order to get Commissioner Boucher back on. So let's just you're going to hear some silence here, but we're going to pause for a moment. Thank you. And that's wonderful. So has it been going okay? I know, give us a brief update on how it's been going over there. Maybe a little deeper than your presentation was. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. So we opened officially on Monday evening, and we did not have anyone come in on Monday. And Tuesday again, we had folks that we knew could be supported through this effort that were not coming in. So by Wednesday, we did some coordinated efforts with HSP and their staff to really do some outreach to make sure that people were aware that this was available and for what specific needs of the individuals that we could support in this. And we then were able to have 3 of those individuals with HSP assisting with transportation to come in and access this. And right now it's a work in progress. Each day we identify something that would work even better, and we're continuing to update that. And it's great too to sit on the calls with the Emergency Operations Center, because we update them each day and we talk with law enforcement about what they're seeing as far as when they're doing their patrols and when they're coming in, and making recommendations to increase on that side as well.
That's great. And I believe the schools, Carroll County Public Schools, is still operating one of their food distribution sites there as well. And you guys are working well to make sure that there's distancing there or what have you. Is that right?
We are on the back side of the school. We're actually not engaged with the East Middle School building at all. We are on the back side, and we're accessing the BEST facility that's behind there. So the only thing that we're using on that relates to that is the top sports field for the outdoor component, but we are actually operational on the back side of the school. So we are not impacting the food distribution on any level. It's not close to our area. And we've actually put up our department, Public Works gang went out this morning and did an install of the snow fencing so it could easily be identified where our location is, so that people, they understand where our utilization space is, so they can avoid that area.
Okay, excellent. I appreciate that. And while we're on the snow fence issue, I want to give kudos to our Public Works folks also, because they've been doing that in our parks to ensure that there's distancing and that no one's utilizing the playground equipment and stuff. Eric, are you back up and running, my friend? Are you on here?
I'm on my phone trying to figure out why my cable is disconnected. All of a sudden, it just said my cable's disconnected. I'm on my phone watching and listening.
Okay, very good. Did you have the briefing papers on this, Commissioner Boucher?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So I'll entertain questions now on this Community Development Block Grant Award. I'll open it up for questions.
So specifically to the award, it's not a question, just again, an applaud of the work you're doing and the drive that you have, Celine, and your team. You really go by in your military, we say the be, no, do approach. And I know it's not all about you. The article was wonderful in the paper this morning, and everything that you shared, I would expect you'd be saying it's you along with your team that really makes it happen. So great job. And I'd like just to make the motion to award this $100,000 block grant as written.
I second that. But I'd also like to ask, I don't know if you mentioned it, Celine, or not, how many people can this respite manage at one time?
It's a great question. So right now we are set to manage 20 to 25 individuals, but we are built for capacity to 50 to 75 individuals, with the hope that that never occurs. But we do have capacity to expand, and that was why we wanted a location like this, so that if there is a need, we're not unresponsive to it. So we are built to grow, but hopefully there's not a need.
Also, like to say, I appreciate the fact that the Westminster Police Department and Sheriff's Department is involved in this as well, because I've heard from people in the area that would be a concern. But I'm 100% ensured, I guess, that this will be handled very, very well, and there'll be no problems at all at the neighborhood.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, got a motion and second on this Community Development Block Grant Award. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you all very much. Appreciate that. Okay, next on our agenda is the FY21 Homeless Solutions Program Grant Application and Award. And again, Celine.
Okay, and so Debbie and Danielle are still with me with this application as well. We are here to seek approval to make application and accept award for the FY21 Department of Housing and Community Development Homeless Solutions Grant. In an effort to streamline this application process during the COVID-19 pandemic, flat funding has been provided based on the FY20 funding for us this year. So the county subgrants this funding to our human services programs of Carroll County. Last year, if you recall, HSP had come to you and presented a proposal because they're looking to transition with also the executive committee of the COC approving this to transition the operations of their shelter system that would allow for a year-round night-by-night shelter rather than the cold weather shelter that's only available from November through April. It would provide for consolidation of the men's and women's shelter into one adult shelter while transitioning Safe Haven shelter residents into either permanent housing or moving over into that one adult shelter system. The family shelter would continue to operate as it currently does. This whole shelter restructuring would begin July 1st of this year for a target for piloting the night-by-night option by August of 2020. This grant also supports our rapid rehousing, which is administered by HSP for the adult side, and our youth rapid rehousing program and outreach, which is administered by Citizen Services. So as you can see with the budget, the grant dollars that would be coming in for this, for all the programs, the adult night-by-night shelter, the family shelter, adult and family rapid rehousing and stipend and staff, shelter administration, the youth rapid rehousing stipend and staff dollars, outreach events, and administrative costs coming to the county would be a total of the grant dollars of $401,200. Then there would be the county match of $544,507 for a total of $945,707. That county match is already part of the operating, the HSP county budget allocation for FY21. That's already been put into that budget. And we are here seeking your approval to continue with these services that we provide through shelter and rapid rehousing and outreach to our individuals, our homeless individuals in the community.
How does the county match going to be affected by our present budget situation? If we go with flat funding from.
Debbie, did you want to speak to that?
I don't know that I can speak to that. I don't know what direction nonprofits have been given, but this is what the operating cost is for the shelters, and that is the primary thing that we fund for HSP. And these dollars, HSP is aware that these dollars are dedicated and allocated to supporting the shelters and are the match on this program. So they have reviewed these budgets and these briefing papers. So if there were cuts, they would have to come in another area because we've already designated these funds for the shelters.
Any other questions?
Sorry, is this grant the same amount as previous grants? Is it the same amount with the flat funding? Everything should be covered then.
Right. This is the same exact flat funding that we received for fiscal year 20.
Okay, then it should be in the budget, even though it's a flat budget then.
Right.
Okay, any other questions? All right, if not, I'll make the motion that we do the FY20 Homeless Solutions Program grant application and the consequent and the award.
It's actually FY21.
What did I say? 20?
Yeah.
Groundhog Day, Celine.
I will second the 21 motion.
Yeah, I officially amended my motion to 21. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on that? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it and appreciate your hard work. And very well done on the respite site, by the way. I drove by there the other day, actually yesterday, as a matter of fact, just to see what was going on. I did not stop in, but I saw that it was well set up, and we appreciate all that you, in conjunction with Access Carroll and all of your partners in that, well done. And we are grateful for your efforts as well. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been a great collaborative effort, and it's great to see that everyone in Carroll County that's pulling together to do this. HSP has a role as well, providing the food. I was remiss in mentioning that, the food and the hygienic support as well. So everyone has pulled together as a great team on this, and it's been quite a great experience, to be honest. As fast as we stood this up, and everybody that came to assist has been really tremendous in showing the support we have in Carroll County, including yours, all of you. So thank you.
Very good, thanks. And Deb, while we've got you on here, I know that there's, grant. That's the new buzzword, because as all of us see the challenges with budgets, et cetera, and all of them, especially our nonprofit community and everyone involved there. It's all about where these grants are, what they are, how we can get them. And you might just give us a brief synopsis of that. I know you're on it, but maybe just give us a brief description of how that's going.
Of course. So most of the grants targeted in nonprofits to date are focused on their participants and their recipients. How are they going to help them during COVID? But there are some emergency operating grants coming out, and I send those out to the nonprofit community as they come. We've seen them for art councils, for historic sites. The firefighters got one the other day for PPE. I sent the Small Business Administration grant out to the nonprofit community. United Way grants are out there. SAMHSA has released some emergency grants. And then there's been some veteran emergency grants. So I disseminate that far and wide, not only to my contacts, but also through some of our community collaboratives, the Circle of Caring Homelessness Board, the Local Management Board, and the Community Services Council, to try to get it out to everyone so that they know what opportunities are out there. Then there will be money that comes through the county. We will have to be the recipient of that funding. And so we are in contact. These are the big dollars that were awarded in the CARES Act and the Family First Act. We are, as a county, in contact with the state agencies, the Department of Aging, the Department of Housing and Community Development, the Department of Maryland Transit Authority, about those federal dollars and when we will see them and what our allocations will be. And then some of those dollars will also go out to the nonprofit community. We will subgrant, like we did with these CDBG dollars, we will subgrant those to the nonprofit community. So we are in contact. Elections is another one that I didn't mention. We're in contact with them about those emergency grants. So there's still some unknowns, especially about the relief funding and the FEMA funding that came through CARES. But for all those, then I can identify somebody at the state that is administering those funds. Either I'm in contact or the agencies are in contact with those state agencies, or our county agencies are in contact with them, so that we are ready when those allocations are released. We just received an allocation yesterday of emergency solutions grant funding. So we will get 257,000 is our allocation. Our normal allocation is 80,000. So considerable increase, and we're working, I'm working with Celine and Danielle now to decide how to put that money out, what to do with it. So we're working hard to keep up with a lot of money coming and to use it in the very best way that we can.
So it's inspiring to hear that you're working hard on a lot of money that's coming.
Well, yeah.
That's the key
And then all
phrase
the normal
there.
grants are coming through too. So, yeah, I hope it's enough. I don't know if it'll be enough. It's probably never enough, but I'll do my best to keep us looped in to whatever opportunities are out there for the county.
Okay, thanks, Deb. I know a lot of folks are concerned, and I know that you're on top of that, and that's why I wanted you to just say a few words today, because it's another just another example of how our staff continues to be engaged in all aspects of this adventure that we're on. So, Deb, thank you very much. We truly appreciate it. Look forward to all of your efforts coming to fruition too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is an update, or I'm sorry, a discussion, a decision based on the GPS stop arm violation system that we've had public hearings on, and presentations. And for that, I will turn it over to our infamous, is that a good word to use for the county attorney? It could be. Infamous county attorney, Mr. Burke.
Good morning, everyone. I'm up here in the corner. And you recall that you were approached in February of 2020 by Superintendent Lockard and the sheriff. They had an idea to install school bus stop arm cameras on their school buses because there's an ongoing problem with people illegally passing school buses when they're in the process of loading and unloading students. These stop arm cameras would take the picture of the violators, and it could be used to issue civil citations by the sheriff of up to $500. Now, the state transportation law provides that these stop arm cameras can only be used in such a manner when authorized by the local governing body, the Board of County Commissioners. So we drafted an ordinance giving the sheriff that authority. And on March 13th, you held a public hearing on the proposed ordinance. That was the last time we were all together in the same room. We had one person appear, and we left the record open for 10 additional days. I don't believe we got any additional comment on the proposed ordinance. So today, if you wish, you can deliberate and decide whether or not to adopt the stop arm camera school bus ordinance, which would authorize the sheriff to institute the program.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Good. Sorry, go ahead.
Dennis.
Tim, this program, this is just authorizing the use of the stop arm cameras on school buses. No specific company is named, I would guess, because they're going to go out for an RFP or whatever to find out, take different bids because it's taxpayer money doing this. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, I spoke to the sheriff yesterday. He doesn't have these things in his trunk or anything like that. This just starts the entire process. I think he's going to use a piggyback bid, and he intends to set up a committee as to how best to implement this program. So it's right now you're just authorizing it. They can't go any further without your authority.
Right, but there's no company that we're looking at in particular right now. Is what I'm trying to get at.
That's right.
Open to anybody.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
I just want to say, as we move forward in this, I hope the bus contractors are part of this program. I mean, it's their vehicles that we're dealing with here. So I think they are a vital part of selecting the contractor and moving ahead, even though I know the school system and sheriff are going to be mostly responsible, but these things have to work together.
Okay, any other comments? I've talked with both the sheriff and our superintendent of schools as well, and they have received no additional comments on this, and I haven't either. So any other discussions on this particular issue? And Eric, it's nice to see you back with us. Thanks.
Thank you. I had some connection problems, but I was able to get on the Wi-Fi and get back on. A little bit frustrating, but we're all tolerant to this new technology.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that the board adopt Chapter 71 as modified. to allow a school bus monitoring camera program.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you very much.
Glad to see that you're holding down the corner. Appreciate it. All right. We go from one Burke to the other here now. We are going to get an update on the tax sales. And for that, I'll turn it over to our comptroller, Rob Burke.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a follow-up to the board's action. You'll recall on your March 31st meeting, the board voted to postpone our 2020 annual tax sale that was scheduled to be held on June 30th, and had direction to proceed with a second notice, and we have done that. So I wanted to just brief the board on what action we've taken and a little bit of what we're hearing and seeing from the public at this point. So as I mentioned, we sent out second notices to all of the taxpayers that had open accounts as of basically April 2nd is when we ran those. We had 1,975 open accounts at that point. So we, by the time we mailed them midweek last week, we pulled some, a little bit less than that, but that's the ballpark. Had about $3.9 million of open county taxes at that point. And the total billing for those tax bills is about $4.7 million. That would include state real property taxes, the towns, as well as some other items that appear on the tax bill. So little under $4 million in county taxes open at that point. Since that time, we're receiving mail and getting payments. So to people who maybe weren't aware that they had a second installment or that they hadn't met their tax bill for this year, we're still getting payments. We've made a few changes to our operation than would normally be happening since April 1st. We're not requiring guaranteed funds. That could be difficult to get at this point in time. We thought it would be easier to go ahead, and so we're accepting business and personal checks at this point of our process. You'll recall that the board elected to eliminate penalty on delinquent payments at this point. So we're charging annual interest only monthly, but no penalty. And there's no fees at this point. During the tax sale, fees begin to accrue, and that won't happen now with the postponement of tax sale. So we're beginning to see some people paying and so forth. We, as on the second notice, when I sent it out, I did make it clear that anyone facing a financial hardship should contact us. We left the email address to contact our office, and I'll give that here in a moment. But we've received a little over a dozen requests at this point. I've approved 5 payment plans at this point, and I just received today about 8 more. So they're starting to roll in. Generally, I'm offering a 6-month payment plan. Give people a little, some time to break out those payments and allow them to catch up and so forth. Those requests, if anyone watching wants to contact us with financial hardship, the email to reach us is collections@carrollcountymd.gov. So that'll reach our tax office. We'll pull the account and we'll be able to review that and work with people. We're working with businesses and a little broader spectrum of payment plans than I deal with on an annual basis from time to time. I've had the question, we've had a little bit of the question, will we look at delaying the New Year's taxes? My intention and my recommendation to the board would be that we stay on track and that we bill our July taxes and our New Year on July 1st. The billing of taxes, in advance triggers a lot of things, and especially if you have settlements, land transfers and so forth. So I wouldn't want to have a gap of a period of time where we hadn't billed taxes. So my recommendation will be that we will bill taxes on July 1st, depending on how long this goes and what the financial situation is. We can always look at different payment options. It's the collection, the payment side that people need some relief from, but I believe we'll bill the taxes on time on July 1st. So at this point, we've got several staff in the office receiving calls. I think in the notice we mentioned, so we'll receive tax bills via obviously through the mail. We've got a drop box located here at the county office building at 225 North Center Street in Westminster. And then we're obviously encouraging people to go online. The website there is paybill.carrollcountymd.gov. That'll take you right to the ability to search for your bill and make an online payment. We offer an e-check payment, and that's sort of the easiest, least handling for anyone, and we're seeing a lot of that. So with that, if there's any questions, I wanted to just brief the board and let the public know what some of their options are.
Questions for Rob?
Thank you, Rob. That puts things in really, I think, perspective for anybody listening, watching. Very fair in what you're asking. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll mention I encourage, I reach out to some of our staff, economic development, in citizen services, the Aging Bureau, and others. I let them know, if they have customers, clients, people, the public they're dealing with, if they hear someone saying, they're having to choose between paying their tax bill or get their medicine or food, I tell them, reach out to us. I need to know what's going on. Let us know. We work with those other departments often. And my feel is if they're working with economic development or citizen services with aging to get help, then I know that they're in good hands. And then I want to work with them as well so that we can, keep, not looking for anybody to get caught up in a process if they don't need to be. So working with staff as well, I encourage, the commissioners, if you're hearing from residents and so forth, encourage them to reach out to us, let us know what's going on. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work over there. I actually hand delivered one of those yesterday to your office. So
very good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boucher, do we have you or not?
He appears to be there, just not, his camera doesn't appear to be turned on, at least when you look at the view everyone. He appears to be there, but he's not chiming in, so he may be disconnected.
Okay, we're going to go into some budget talks here, but I'm not going to do that unless I've got all five. So we're going to need to pause again here until we have confirmation that we have Commissioner Boucher.
Right. I'll try to confirm it if he doesn't ring in the meantime.
Hey, Steve, also open admin, couple comments. Should we just
Sure.
wait?
Yeah, why don't we do that, Ed? And we can roll when we get Eric back on. So yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
So one issue, and I don't know if we need to put on the agenda or not, but the coupons for the landfill. Residents receiving those 2 coupons every year. We made a decision in the budget discussion to take those away. What I'm asking is, because of the situation we're in right now, the coupons expire, I believe, at the end of the fiscal year, 30 June. What if we extended this year's coupons for the time that we're going through this pandemic? So in other words, extend them from 30 June deadline to a 30 September deadline. It'll allow folks that have those coupons this year the opportunity to use them. We're already calculating the cost associated with the coupons in FY20. A few folks came to me, reference it. Yeah, I think it could be a good gesture for folks that still have those coupons and typically have waited to use them till their spring cleaning is all complete. And this way they don't have to rush to the dump by 30 June and just expand to 30 September. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a good idea to try to extend it because of what's going on. But I mean, if you're going to put a date on it, or why you want to try to extend it to the end of the state of emergency, something of that sort, because we don't know how long it's going to go.
Yeah, I was just, going with the 90 days, extend, one more quarter. But however you want to do it, I mean, I think putting a timeline on it so people don't have to keep, they don't have to keep looking at these things. But if we extend it to 90 days, 120, I don't care. I just want the intent's there to allow folks to use this year's coupons past the fiscal year.
I like the idea that they can use them. They were already sent out. They already have them. It's only 13% of the people use them anyway. It gives them a little longer to, they're still good. They don't have to be just thrown away in July or whatever. That's not a bad idea.
Eric, just to catch you up real quick, if you didn't hear, it's the landfill coupons that we receive. The deadline to use them is 30 June. To expand it beyond 30 June, I'm throwing out 30 September. It could be, the 30 December. I don't really care. I just want to give folks the opportunity to use them and not be compelled to think they have to get to the landfill before this fiscal year's up.
Eric, are you good with your sound?
He looks like a statue.
So I don't think he is. So I'm not sure about procedurally here on this either, but I'm not going to make this decision unless all five of us are on here. Tim, or I guess it would be Tim or Roberta, this would have to be an item, I guess, that would be agenda, or is it okay because it was just a placeholder on our budget? Because that's really all that decision was a placeholder.
I think it's different decisions. One is the funding of next year's coupons. I'm talking about the coupons that have already been distributed for FY for this year, that we're expanding the deadline of this year's coupons. So
yeah, we're aware of that. We're aware of that. But in the discussion we had about them, we decided that they wouldn't be able to use them past July the 1st. So that's why I'm asking the question, to make sure that we're not getting out of whack here with procedures. So Tim?
No, you can handle this administratively today during this session. There was already notice to the public earlier that there was going to be discussion about the landfill. So that was enough notice to take this up at this point.
Okay, so we're still dealing with Eric. So we might have to put this one on hold because I'm not going to, out of respect for him, I'm not going to do this until we have him on board. So thank you. Did you have anything else for open admin? Ed, we'll add that to the list and then we'll move on.
No, I appreciate it. The only other open admin piece I just want to share is a shout out to Senator Katie Hester and the work that she is doing in focused attention on Sykesville and Eldersburg establishing this COAD. She has been tireless in this effort, and I really applaud her commitment to the community in Eldersburg and Sykesville, and her commitment to to our volunteer programs. So that's all.
Okay, anybody else have anything for open admin? Okay, if not, before we go into budget, we can't do it without all five. So I'm not sure what Eric's, I know he's trying to get connected. He's having some technical difficulties down in that area. But I'm not going to keep going until we are ensured that he's on here.
Who could imagine if the person having technical difficulties with the internet and all it wouldn't be me? I mean, if I'm out, everybody would expect it, but.
Well, I'll see that for you and raise you me, because I don't even have internet, and I've been doing pretty well. So.
Hey, Dennis, it's not about you having technical difficulties, it's just you being difficult. That's all.
So I'm not, Roberta, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest you could just give it a rest and recess until 2 o'clock. You do have an afternoon session, or you could, take another 5-minute recess to see if he's able to get on. Either way.
I'd rather do the 5-minute thing because I mean, we didn't go yesterday or the afternoon on Tuesday. I don't know what we're going to get done, but we need some time.
Yeah, agree. So why don't I entertain a motion to recess for 5? Let's go with 10 minutes here. Let's go with a motion to recess until 10:50. Would that work? And then that maybe will give us time.
I'll second that motion.
All right, so we're going to go and recess to our viewing public. We will be back on the air at 10:50. All those in favor? And Weaver, what is that? What is that? That's unanimous, plus whatever that is that Commissioner Weaver has. So we'll see you back at 10:50. Thank you. Okay, good morning once again. We're hopeful that we are through our technical difficulties in the southern part of the county. Commissioner Boucher is back on, and we didn't want to do anything further until all 5 of us were engaged in the following conversation, which is our continued effort to come up with our proposed budget. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ted for some opening remarks here, if you will. I know that all of us did receive a hard copy or at least an email with a copy of the proposed budget as it pertains to where we left it on Tuesday. So with that being said, Ted, I'll turn it over to you for whatever remarks you have as we begin to continue this morning. Ted.
Okay, just a few thoughts, and then we can go over where you left things. Had another phone call yesterday with the director of the Board of Revenue Estimates for the state. He didn't have a whole lot of new information to offer to us. One thing that I think was important, I said to you recently that there'd been talk about the state losing $2.8 billion in the last quarter. And I told you that that was not actually their projection, but the current worst case of the scenarios they're looking at. The very first thing he did was to emphasize that point. So just want you to know that that's not just me, it's the guy who came up with those numbers. I checked with the school system about $2 million again. They have seen a number in a DLS report, but they have not heard anything from anybody that says, prepare yourself to receive this check or anything like that. Then Commissioner Weaver mentioned the community college and $1 million. They have received a notification of some sort, but they also have not gotten anything that says a check is in the mail. Deb, can you pull up the spreadsheet where we had the changes in the budget? I was asked last session by Commissioner Wance to identify where the biggest changes are, where the biggest losses are from what we intended to budget to what we're talking about now. We put together a spreadsheet to give you a little bit of a look at that. And Deb,
I need him to make my screen shareable.
Matt, can you make Deb the presenter?
Mr. Boucher, are you still good? You can hear? Okay.
Okay, this is a pretty high level summary, but I think it gets you most of what you need to know. The question we were asked was, where were the biggest hits against what we had planned in the fiscal year 21 budget? If you look at column H, you see $5,009,000 at the top there. Those would be the biggest changes from what we had planned to what we're talking about today. But we needed to give you a little bit more context, I think, to understand those numbers. So if you look at column C, that's what is in your current fiscal year 20 budget. Column G is where we thought we were going to be. And then column D is where we are right now. So if you look from column C to column D, you can see the current change with the budget we're talking about in column E. So public schools goes up $1.1 million. Public safety is down $388,000 and so on. Column H gives you the change from where we are now from where we thought we'd be. So if you look at public schools, you see they are in one sense the biggest loser if you're looking at where we are compared against where we thought we were going to be. They are also the biggest winner in terms of fiscal year 20 to where we think we are now. Public safety and corrections down about $1.5 million from what was planned. That's about $400,000 lower than last year. That is almost all, or I think is all one-time costs. A lot of that was related to the SROs. Some was about one-time funding to Visa. There was a vehicle for animal control. So in an operational way, those budgets are flat. Public Works is down about $750,000 against plans, up $126,000 against last year. You might remember us talking about needing to contract out our bridge engineering work. There's a lot of pluses and minuses, but that number can be entirely explained by that one thing. Total education others, the community college and library, they are operationally flat. I don't remember exactly what the $36,000 change is, but it's, I mean, not a big change, of course. Human resources, that change from 20 is about the one-time funding for a bonus. We cut it off here at $100,000 in column H, so there are other things. And if there's need to, you know, we can dive deeper into these numbers. But I think this gave you a pretty good sense of where the changes are. Any questions about this? Okay.
Yeah. Is it possible to move the current fiscal year dollars, like in the public schools, that column E, into FY21 to start, you know, getting us in the right place, or no? I mean,
that is the increase that with the budget we're talking about right now, that's the increase in 21 that the school system would get.
Does that include the column E being pushed into 21?
Yes.
Column E is the difference between 20 and 21.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
okay. I think I understand. Got it.
Yeah, to your question, Ed, yeah, so column D already reflects what you were asking. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I'm tracking it. Thanks.
Anything else on this?
No, I think this, and I appreciate your work, Ted, and your staff on this, because I think this might be the best chart that puts our decisions in perspective. And that's kind of what that was kind of the method to my madness here, so that we could see what our efforts are, and it's right in our face. So I appreciate the efforts on this.
Yeah, and that effort was Deb's. All I did was say, can you add this? Can you move this?
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Deb, can you pull up the actions spreadsheet now? Then here's what you did in the last session and where that leaves you after all the various decisions you've made so far. Then that's really all I need to do. So whenever you're ready, we're back to deliberations.
All right, questions, comments, or any place since you've had a day or two to digest most of this. Although today's chart, I think really, again, as I stated, puts a lot of our efforts in perspective. But I think it allows us for a good starting point here. And again, and I don't know what you're hearing, Ed, because I know that you've been on some of these conference calls as well. about and Dennis, you also mentioned it with your NACO involvement, about what we can expect or possibly could expect. The only problem is timing and the whens of those expectations. I don't know if comments on that from either of the two of you.
Just, what I shared, I did reach out, as you know, to Senator Cardin, and I was very appreciative that they responded back. But the response was unfortunately what we all expected, and that is we don't know what's happening. We don't know. And the only thing he did talk about was the couple $1 million to the schools. I'm not hearing anything else. I was on the call yesterday afternoon with the federal administration, and it was all pats on the back and anecdotal information at this point, and there's no real details I could provide, unfortunately.
What I heard from NACO basically was the counties our size, anything below 500,000 in the population, you're going to wait for a while because there's no plan about how that money is going to be distributed. There's not even a plan right now. And for what they said, Congress isn't not even working on that plan right now. So how long that's going to be, I don't know. That's why their main emphasis was to push that if any other relief comes through, you don't put it on the size of the county. You give it to everybody. You come up with a plan immediately, put the money out, because this money that we may be getting, and I think we will get something, how much or when, and the when, in my opinion, from what they were saying yesterday, that's pushed out there a ways. We're not going to see anything from that first, whatever they call it, stimulus one or whatever they call it, for a while. We'll probably have our budget done before we see any concrete information on that. I might be very pessimistic in that, but I don't think so.
Commissioners, on this, I'm not sure that it really needs to get in the way of your deliberations. So anything we're going to get from the federal government or the state government is almost certainly going to be one-time money. So you can't use it to support ongoing expenditures. So in the end, I think what happens here is whatever we get from them is going to offset the need for you to use your reserves, or if you use reserves, we'll be able to replenish your reserves and solidify your overall position. If this happens to go into 21, I think the same thing is more or less true. If we find that 21 doesn't go well, the money again will either allow you to cover COVID-related expenditures that we haven't budgeted, or will allow you to hang on to your reserves. So I think your conversations on what you want the budget to be can move on without us knowing these answers.
My question to you, Ted, having said that, actually, if we get any one-time money from the federal government or the state or anywhere else, again, I mentioned before, there's a couple of CIP things I'd like to look at for that, because it is one-time money. Maybe we could fund something that needs to be done, something that's in my mind right now, but I'm not going to bring it up. Okay, let's look at our bottom line adjusted operating plan balance. That $1.797 million for FY21. Can we use that money? Are you saying no, we don't even want to use that? Because if we can't use that at all, then what do we have to talk about?
Well, I agree. There's not a whole lot left to talk about unless you take a path of increasing expenditures and using that money. But my caution on using that money is there is more downside in our current revenue projections than there is upside. I don't see any upside. I only see downside. I think the prudent thing would be to stay as close to where we are, or even less, not to add money. If we don't add anything more to this budget, what I actually would suggest to you on that $1.8 million that's sitting there, there's $6.2 million of fund balance assigned to fiscal year 21. I would suggest that we reduce that by $1.8 million, which means that $13.5 million you have in reserve would become $15.3 million. So we would not be spending money we're not sure of, and we'd be adding to your reserve position.
Commissioner Weaver, I have a question for you. You talked about the $1 million that Carroll Community College is looking forward to receiving. Does that alleviate any pressure off money that, because they're looking for additional money for raises and whatever else? Does that what made up any of that pressure?
That money, no, that money all goes as half goes to students for recovering students, and most of it will go into students who need help with tuition. And the other half goes for the college expenses for technology to go to the virtual learning situation. So it's like everything, a lot of the money's needed for salaries and those type things to keep the school going, but they're earmarking a lot of these areas only into certain areas. And when you get earmarked money, it doesn't really help the bottom line a lot of times. It's there, yes, it helps, but it's not where it needs to be. And they're still struggling, or going to be struggling. And I think our school system is too a little bit. So, but even though that, if that $2.5 million comes through, it's not earmarked. I think it said Senator Cardin had that. Is that right, Ed?
Say that one more time. You're asking me?
Yeah, the Senator Cardin alluded to $2.5 million for the school system, but that could be used at their discretion, I think. Is that right?
Well, I mean, it's tagged to, it says to CCPS. So yeah, I would imagine it is, but I didn't go into any further depth in conversation. He just sent me what he did. So, but it looks like it's tagging the school system, not the county, to then allocate it to the schools.
And on the community college.
Yeah, and it's only one-time money again, which puts us back into that dilemma. And, we're in this situation here again. We don't know. Here we are trying to balance a budget, not knowing what's coming in, not knowing or having even a prediction of what's going in at the present time. It's all a little bit of here, a little bit here and there until we get something. It doesn't exist. And I hate to say it, but Ted's pretty much on target here. We're at a standstill, at least for the present time.
On the community college money, my understanding is the same as Commissioner Weaver's. Half to students and half to offsetting COVID expenditures, which probably will mean picking up some of the cost of trying to teach remotely.
For the way I see it, and I could be way off here, we either look at what we have right now, and this is our proposed budget, or we take that $1.8 million and try to use that as well as we can for expenses.
Hey, Ted, I have a question before we go with that, Dennis. I have a question on one-time money. We keep talking about one-time money. If we would get, one-time money of, I don't know, 2, 3, whatever million or whatever the figure would be, I understand it's one time, but why couldn't we take that and put it into a place that would allow us to spread it over the next few years instead of maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but why can't we, if we get 2 million, why couldn't we put it somewhere that would allow us to spread it over the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Well, maybe you could, but I would argue it's just going to compound your problems. Because right now, fiscal year 26 is more than $4.5 million out of balance. If you use some money spread over 21, 22, and 23 to cover ongoing expenditures, then in 24, 25, and 26, you're going to have that much bigger a problem to figure out. And like I said last time, the only way that doesn't become a problem is if suddenly our revenue picture gets enough better to cover those differences. And I don't think we have any basis for thinking that right now.
No, I'm not sure we do either, but I'd like to, I'm going with the glass half full rather than half empty. I mean, then why not spread it at, if we get $2 or $3 million, why can't we spread it over 6 years? Why wouldn't that then indeed help all of the out years and not necessarily focus it in 1 year, but spread it over 21 through 6?
But then you're still facing the same problem in fiscal year 27. You just don't see it on the spreadsheet.
I understand that. I'm trying to come up with a way to do things a tad bit differently based upon the fact that there's no rhyme or reason here at this point. So, that's all I'm trying. Instead of the focus on one time, just trying to take it and split it and put 100 or 500,000 here, 500,000 there, whatever the figure is. That's where I was going. And then I understand the out years are critical. I understand that, but we're going to have to do, I think, what is best and do an attempt to try to get those as close as we can, knowing that I don't think there's a realistic way at all of being able to balance 5, 6, or 7.
I agree. But that's the reason why I'm suggesting we don't have room to add ongoing costs, ongoing expenditures. Because we already know that we're planning to spend money that we don't know how we're going to fund. So I'm saying, how can we add to that?
Commissioner,
Our priority has to be 21, second priority 22, third priority 23, 24, and down the line. And then we are going to have to make some decisions later. But right now, we're not in a position to even look, I think, beyond maybe 23, 24 to latest. And Ted, I understand when the one-time money drops off, it's there even with a bigger deficit tied to it. But we have to start looking immediate, down the road as best we can. And then each year we're going to have to make changes to the budget to hit that 26, 27 years in there. But I'm looking at this and, we do have some funds that we could allocate and perhaps get through 21, 22 looking pretty good, and then start to use some of that other money, as Commissioner Wance said, down the road.
Commissioners, I mean, this is your call. It's your budget and your decisions. But Commissioner Weaver, playing out the logic that you just laid down, if we look at 21 and say that's our priority, and we accept the revenue projection that's there, and again, I'm going to caution you, I'm not in love with that revenue projection. But if we say there's $1.8 million there, that would lead you to say, all right, we can give the school system $1.8 million. We can make it work. But with everything we know, we're not going to be able to continue to pay for that $1.8 million in the future. I mean, we could say, don't worry about them, but those years aren't going to change just because we're saying don't worry about them. The reason, we have two problems now. We have the COVID problem, and we have a problem where we've overcommitted the revenues we expect to have over time. The way that happened, and it happened a little bit at a time over a number of years, and all for good reasons, was we kept finding ways to make things work. But now it is piled up in fiscal year 26 and beyond to a position where we don't know how to fix this. And if we spend more money in 21, it's just going to be that much worse.
Hey, Ted, question for you. Legally, are we allowed to move money from enterprise funds or Parks and Rec into the operational budget? I mean, I know and I guess those are two, but there's others that we've talked about in the past. These are fenced funds that, become self-sustaining in their own categories. But is it possible to move things from one, like Parks and Rec, to the operational fund? Now, as dramatic as it may sound, shutting down one of these parks or shutting down something, and I'm not advocating for this, but just want to know if it's feasible.
Okay, well, Rec and Parks is part of your general fund. So you don't have to move that from anywhere. The expenditures and the revenues are all part of your big operating pot. Solid waste, you're putting general fund money into the fund. So clearly it's in your hands to take it out or not put it in if you choose to. With water and sewer, I don't want to be in a position of offering a legal opinion here, but you're collecting charges for using water and sewer. I would think that you can't take those for just general operations, but I don't know that it's illegal to do it.
Okay.
Roberta, were you? I thought I heard you come in there at one point. Were you in there or what?
Yeah, I just, with regard to your thought, and I know you're all struggling about possibly using any money we get from the federal government or the state as a result of this pandemic in future years or spreading it or whatever, is keep in mind what we've seen so far with much of this promised money is it's directly linked to expenses incurred as a result of the pandemic. So if and when we get some money, I would think the lion's share, if not all of the money, would have to go back to reimburse us to pay for those expenses. That's usually the way those kinds of things work. So it's not just free to let you do what you want to with it. So it'd be my concern if you chose to do something with that one-time money that you may run into a problem.
Okay, I appreciate that. But I think some of the emphasis of the conversations that we have been hearing, we being Dennis and Ed, those of us that are engaged with officials, the emphasis has been on the fact that we are, all of us, identifying critical problems with our operating budgets. And I think most of the language that we are hearing as far as relief has been specifically stated in the attempt to try to help us with that. The other funds, you're right. I think that's clearly going to be where it is. But I think that, like I say, I think we've heard that they all know that we're struggling with our budgets. So I would hope that that specific language is where they're trying to come up with relief for us. Dennis, you had said something a couple minutes ago about the proposed budget. You want to repeat what you said again in reference to the 1.8 that we're seeing here, or what have you?
Well, if we're not willing to look at that 1.8 and plug it in for this year for hold up some things, and we'll have some things in mind. Then what we're going to end up doing, I guess, is the proposed flat budget that we have out here would have to be the budget, because either we're going to use some additional funding off of that 1.8 and plug in, for instance, I'll put the two EMS call center people, throw them in here, something like that. If we're not going to do that with that money, then what we have is what we have. Because we can talk about one-time money that might or might not be coming from the federal government and state, and I do believe we will get something at some point in time. Until we get that And like what Roberta said, most of that probably would go to reimburse expenditures that we have, which will still help us out. But either we're going to use some of that 1.8 or we're going to leave it alone. If we leave it alone, then the budget we have is the budget we have, unless we're going to find some other revenue from somewhere else.
I think going back to the very, very beginning, where Steve, you asked us about our priorities. And, you know, I wrote them down, focusing our attention on those priorities. And taking a look at these other opportunities where, again, you know, for me, I'm looking at some of the recs and park and centers and capital money that is allocated in the out years as potentially delaying actions on them, using those funds potentially to meet the priorities that we've established, like, you know, Dennis shared about EMS, and I know Eric, you did too, around the 911 operators. You know, I talked safety, security, I talked infrastructure, dealing with the internet, you know, and we all kind of went down the line. But I think it's important that we put our attention back on those priorities that we started with and walk through them to say, okay, are we willing to work a solution to fund them, or is this just too hard to do at this point? And Ted, you're gonna tell me I can't do any of that, right?
Well, I have a question for you first. Were you just referring, you said back in parks, were you talking about capital funds now?
I am. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay, I'm sorry. When I answered you before, I was only thinking about operating side. But the Rec and Parks Capital Program is almost all program open space money, which is legally restricted to those kind of projects. So that money is not available for other purposes.
Can we go back and ask legally if they can amend that law to allow us to use the funds?
I guess in theory, but you'd have to have a legislative session, and it seems extremely unlikely to me we would have success doing that.
Yeah, that's a state level decision. Ed?
No, I do. I appreciate, I understand it, but as things are, you know, we're all in the same boat. Every jurisdiction, the state, and we either got to find where other revenues are going to come in play, or accept the fact that we are not going to be funding the priorities that we laid out, and then move on. If that's the case, then we're kind of where Dennis is coming. We're done. But I think we should look at those priorities one more time. Not one more time, but make sure we're focused our attention on them. Yeah, and then go from there.
So if we do that, and I'm not disagreeing, Ed, and I think instead of looking at it one more time, make sure that remains at the top of our list, those priorities that we had there, that all five of us had. But if we do that, I think the best chart to look at then would be that chart in which we saw the and I hate to use winners or losers, but those areas that were affected by the decisions that we've made. Because I think if you look at that, most of all of what we had talked about priority-wise is on that chart, the one we looked at starting out here this morning.
And like magic, there it is.
So
yeah, I agree with you.
So if you're talking about, you know, there seems to be an emphasis on ensuring that we get additional dispatchers out there. You know, we're still not sure yet on that one. And I'm going to do a half full glass here again. We're still not exactly sure what we're going to get out of the changes that were made with the next gen 911 legislation. But we have been told, and we haven't seen it yet, but we've seen a little bit of an increase there, that eventually we'd be able to finance those positions in a way in which that next gen 911 legislation would help us. So I'm still sort of on the standby mode with that one, because I think there's still going to be some help there. There's also been some talk about the Emergency Services Number Board, ESNB. I hate to use acronyms. ESNB picking up some of the cost of other things that would free up some money for us in that category. So I'm still hopeful that we'd be able to do that without really creating a burden here, is my point. But most of all of our priorities, I think, went right down the list of education, public safety, and here it is.
I hear what you're saying, Steve, and I'm appreciative of that. I really am. But the fact is, the 911 operators, I think they're asking for 8. I'm not looking to do anything near 8. But if we did 2 and funded them ourselves, and we're waiting for the additional funding to come in, they still need more beyond that. They still need well more than that. And 2 is just a drop in the bucket. But I think it's what we can fund. And I know we're waiting for it, but my opinion is, and I could be way off, that no matter what we get from the other funding sources for that, they're not going to come up with 8 positions. We're not going to get enough for that. And maybe we don't need all 8, but we're looking at, we need some help out there. And I think if we look at funding 2 of those positions, and I know Ted doesn't like that, but I know if we're funding 2 of those positions right now, I think it's what we can do. And then if we get additional funding, then you look at funding the other positions that are being asked for the 911 center.
Okay, I'm agreeing with you on that, Dennis. I am. I'm just trying to come up with a way that I hope would have helped us with that. But the only way to be able to do that now is to take the difference that we're seeing there on line 7 and plugging more money into it in order to get those 2 positions, right?
You're absolutely right. The only way that I can see is to take part of that $1.8 million and put it in ongoing money. I know Ted is against that, but if we're not doing stuff like that, then we're not doing anything. And maybe you guys don't want to do it that way, leave that money on the bottom line. Okay, but then we've got our budget.
Or we take a look at the 13.5, right?
Except that that's one-time money.
No, the 13.5 unfunded, the operational balance, isn't that what we have right now? And look at pulling some of that into.
That is what you have, but it is one-time money.
Oh, I see. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same direction that Commissioner Wance was going, was pulling that one-time money and stretching it over the years to include the out years. But you're right, it's just kicking the can down the road because it's going to stop sometime, and that's where we have a problem. So
when we took office, we inherited a lot of cans being kicked down the road, and we had to deal with the pile of trash at the end of the road here, and this is where we are in this present time. I know they need operators out there, but here again, we'll keep waiting for next gen 911 to kick in that money. And we've been hearing this for 2 years. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Well, when it gets here, we have it. Until there, it's sort of like a check in the mail. Until you have it, you really don't have it. And this is a very difficult thing to do at this time, but we can add those at any time we get an increase in that funding, correct?
Well, yes, there's ways we could do it, but on this 911 or the funding for 911, the phone bills, we haven't talked about this for a while. I just want to make sure we haven't forgotten what's going on. When you adopted the fiscal year 20 budget, we built in a significant increase in that funding, which does not look like it's going to happen. We're going to be about $1 million short of what we budgeted just to balance your fiscal year 20 plan. So for there to be money available to do more we need $1 million and then we need some more funding. I don't think there's any reason to think that's happening. And on the numbers board part of the funding, I did mention this to you earlier in the process. There's I think it was about $130,000 of expenditures built into your budget right now that it seems reasonably possible that the state will be covering. We don't know they're going to cover it yet. So right now it's in your budget, but that could free up $130,000 at some point. Like that's one of the few places where I am feeling, fairly good that we have something working in the right direction for us, but we don't know it yet.
Just a question along these lines. Okay, go.
What was the figure on those two dispatchers? That was, I'm sorry, Dick.
The 150 you sent me, is that for the two positions?
No, that was the EZNet that's
Oh.
built in.
Okay, do you know what two positions is?
Yes, I have it on the screen. Can you see it?
Okay. One looking.
It's on row 106. FY21 would start in column C, FY21. So 137, 120 the first year, 142. They really don't have any one-time expenses.
And the EZNet, Deb, figure was 100, wasn't it 150,000 or something like that, that we are fairly certain that they're going to pick up that cost?
Yes, it's 150 in FY21, and then it goes up to 300 because it starts in the calendar year where we're required to have that. So in an ongoing way, 300,000 is what we're hoping that the numbers board will fund, freeing it up for us in the future.
What about just one position this year? Not looking at two and cutting that in half and not making such a dent in the budget?
Or glass half full and use that EZNet money to fund those dispatchers.
I'm all for using that money, but again, it's money that we're hopeful we're going to get that we don't have. But I like to, yeah.
What about if we took all capital projects and just backed them up a year? What effect would that have on our operating budget? Or could it have a positive effect on our operating budget?
Assuming you could back them all up a year, which you probably in a practical way can't, all that would do would be shift your ongoing expenditures out a year. So it would buy you some room today, but it'd be another one of those things where you'd be spending money that you wouldn't know how you're going to pay tomorrow.
It'd almost be like kicking a can down the road or something.
Yes.
Okay, so our nonprofits that we fund, the 10 nonprofits. Again, not saying I want to do this, but the feasibility of taking 10% off the funding of the nonprofits, all 10 of them. You know, it's how much funds would that give us in totality? 21, 26. Is it, roughly 4 million, or no, not 4 million.
I think that's right.
So,
Now, that's in your hands to do. There's no
right,
mandated funding here.
right,
And putting aside what the implications would be for these nonprofit service providers, there are two places where this would directly collide with a problem for you, though. With HSP, they are your shelter providers. So it would not be however difficult it would be to say take 10%, it wouldn't be as easy as it might be somewhere else.
right, right.
With the Service Bureau, you've asked them to become your drug treatment provider. So you have another thing you'd run into there.
Yeah, and I agree. And, like Steve, you shared, you don't like winners and losers, but the fact is there are 10 nonprofits that we have selected as being winners over time, and we are helping fund, and we're not the sole funding. There are many, many more nonprofits in this county that we are not funding. So continuing a funding stream for them, taking away the 10%, I would also look at keeping the HSP and the YSB the same because of their commitments to us and the agreements that we've made. And the others, I mean, they're getting funds from grants, they're getting funds from us, they're getting funds from folks digging in their pockets. And that may be a way to bring some money into our budget, into our operational budget.
Okay, Deb, I can't see the whole spreadsheet. Just want to make sure, when we're talking about $4 million, the health department's not in that number, are they? Or are they?
No, I did not include the state programs, health department and social services. I did not include.
Okay, right. I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, on Commissioner Rothstein's point, the nonprofits do get, in some cases, state funding, some cases, grant funding. Whatever decision you consider here, just want to make sure there's not a feeling that they have more money than they know what to do with. They're all scraping by just like we are. And the state funding hasn't been changing very much for some of these agencies, and the whole grant world is getting more and more difficult with every passing year.
No, I get it. And I've been on boards of directors for nonprofits, and I've also run them in different counties. And being reliant on county funding, sometimes it went away or sometimes it minimized, and we had to deal with it and figure out how we were going to find other funds. I mean, yeah, it stinks, but other priorities occur. And, unfortunately, I was on the losing end of a few of them running those boards or running those nonprofits. But this is a situation we got to look at. What are our priorities that we lined up, and keep that in front of us at all times. So, but yeah, trust me, I have a strong appreciation for every one of these, and everybody I think knows we all do. But looking at possibly a 10% cut in their funding may be a way to bring up some funds for us, some dollars for us.
So Deb, as I'm looking at that spreadsheet you just put down here, so 10% cut and the nonprofits, not including the HSP and the Youth Services Bureau, would give us $154,000. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be in an ongoing way.
Yeah, and we talk about ongoing way. This would have to be one of those places, though. If you make a change like this, it would have to be with an idea. This goes on forever. It's not something we're going to fix in 2 years.
I have to say, I don't like the idea, Ed. I can see where you're going for it. There's nonprofits, they take every dollar that we give them and they leverage it 5 and 6 times, and they really do. They ones that are picked because they do a tremendous job for Carroll County. and why in one hand it's only $154,000. That means a lot if you're leveraging that by 4 and 5 times, and they do, and they really do. And I understand what you're doing, but I don't like this idea.
No, and I appreciate that. I think what we should be doing is taking a look at these, chunks and coming up with the agreements. We're either going to touch it or slash through it and move on to the next. I'm just looking at what feasibility is out there. I don't like the idea either. But again, most of these ideas I don't like with. I like when we're cutting money, but no, I just want to throw it out there. I'm not saying I'm for this. I'm just saying I need to look at it objectively and then move forward.
This is exactly what the state has done to us for years. They cut the funding, we have to make up the funding. And this is not a great idea, but it's one we need to look at. I hate to say it, and maybe even a little further down the line in some other areas. We look at, cutting 10% off some, or a percentage off of some programs. They just have to live with where it is. We're stepping back a little bit at this time.
And the other part is I'm throwing out arbitrary numbers, percentages, 10%. I mean, if we threw out the arbitrary 5%, then it's $75,000. That'll give us ongoing funds. That may be more palatable. I mean, just looking at different approaches on, unfortunately, nickel and diming our way through this.
Yeah, my 10 cents, I'm going to weigh in on this nonprofit thing too. I already got a letter from one of our nonprofits that went to everybody that's a member there, that showed the amount of money that they lost as a result of having to cancel events, which is primarily their biggest way in which they get their income. Grants are fine, but most of them can't even get those grants. Most of them those grants are so tight that they can't get them. So, because I can tell you, with the exception of maybe one or two, these nonprofits go after every penny they can with grants, and it's very, very difficult because grants are going to disappear as well. So what you would take away here is incredibly damaging to them, because their biggest income maker is their events. And this particular nonprofit is estimated to losing $100,000, and that was just 2 events.
Yeah, again, I understand. And as shared, I've been on boards and running nonprofits where we've lost from the county, not this county. And just want to throw it out there to open up that this is discretionary money that we should be looking at as potentially, getting. Now, I'm not for this either. I don't agree. It's just like you bring up taxes. I am absolutely not for increasing our tax structure, but we have to bring it up in the sense that looking at taxes and fees. And I'm not for it. I said it from the get-go. But it's still the discussion that we have to put on the table to then say, okay, let's take it away and move on to the next. So, and that's fine with these nonprofits. That is absolutely fine. I just want to throw it out there.
And Ed, you bring up an interesting point. Ed, you bring up a very interesting point with the tax increase thing. There is absolutely no way, and I agree with you, and I think all of us agree, that we could do anything right now with that. Not today, not tomorrow, not in the next year. But maybe maybe that's something that we should look at as plugging in the 4, 5, 6 area, when we know that we're in a recovery, and folks would then be better to accept it. If we plugged something like that in, Ted, that would help those out years, correct?
Well, it would, but you can't commit a future board to a tax increase. You know, that's very speculative saying we're balancing our budget on that.
Well, actually, you could, or we could. I don't agree with doing that. But again, it is something on the table to be talked about if you want. I'm absolutely not for that because it's too much of the unknowns and it would be contingent on too many unknowns. I am very adamant about not touching our taxes at this point. Other jurisdictions are doing that, and I cannot believe they're doing it on the backs of their folks. So we should not be even thinking about it.
Yeah, again,
Commissioner Wance, I do want to remind you, last week you did make the statement, everybody has to sacrifice something here. And, that's, I hate to say it, but that's where we are in this.
I agree, Dick, and I did make that statement. And back to that other thought. My intent here, and I agree, Ted. There's no way that I would ever do anything like that. To tell a future board that, hey, by the way, when you get elected in 2 years, you're going to have to raise taxes. that would never be my intent. But I was just sort of looking at it as a possibility for that board down the road, that they may indeed in a recovery be able to do something then so that it would help us right now in thinking that perhaps they do that down the road with those out years. That was my only thought there. And I would never make that decision here to do that. That would be incredibly disrespectful. But in the debate over these nonprofits again, and Dick, back to your point, you're absolutely right. But I would argue that this is not something that we would do right now, because we're seeing 1.7 on that bottom line right now. I understand that 5 and 6 are whacked, but isn't this some sort of a decision we could make if we had to, when we reopen in September, instead of doing it now?
Was that a question to me or to the board?
That was a question to all, I guess. You included, Ted.
I guess, in theory, yes. I'm not sure what's going to change between now and then that's going to fix the fundamental concerns, though.
Only that I truly think we're going to have a better idea of what relief we could be getting. It would only be in the spectrum of that.
Right, and we should have a better idea. But the problem I keep coming back to is that's going to be one-time money. It's not going to fix the ongoing mismatch between the expenditures we've committed to and how much revenue we think we're going to have.
We made a decision last year that dealt with roads. I can't recall how much money we took from DPW dealing with roads. Do we have that somewhere?
Yeah, but bringing it up. I think it was close to $5 million over several years.
Yeah, I feel like it was somewhere around there as well.
And it was bonded. So here's the debt service reduction due to that $4.7 million reduction.
Row 11. Yeah, and we've had this come up with some other items. Sometimes it can be easy to think about a change in bonds you made and not make the translation into how much debt service did it create, which is what really matters to your bottom line.
Right.
See, and actually, we talk about, what's going to happen to us several years down the road. This is another place that's contributing to the problem we have. We made a multi-year reduction in expenditures to balance these years. But unless we are never going to put that money back, once we get past this, the expenditures jump back up again. And that is where we are right now. We didn't make an ongoing change. We made a limited number of year change.
Another area I'm just looking at, what happens with transit if we don't expand anything? Can we hold a line and not and save some money at this time by not expanding or not moving any further at that point?
It's like $39,000 if I'm not somewhere right around there.
Yes, that sounds right. Remember, now we did tell you that we had significantly increased the projected cost of transit. Part of it was about those increased hours, which I think Commissioner Frazier is pretty much on target. Part of it is we have a new contract that will be starting. And there was a third piece of that one there, Deb.
Yes, the assumption that the state funding and the fares would remain flat and the contract increases 5% per year. So our contribution would increase much larger than 5% per year.
Yeah, and actually the one I was forgetting is probably the biggest one. We know as things stand, costs are going to grow more quickly than state funding and fare revenue, which means that the county has to pick up a bigger and bigger piece of this every year. And we showed that to you, what it looked like in the op plan, and the number is just climbing every year. The expanded hours was $37,000. So Commissioner Frazier, you were off by $2,000.
The RSS, what is the big jump? 21 is 419,000, 22 and forward is 900 plus thousand. What was that cause? I'm trying to remember and I just don't.
This is about the triage bed situation. Why does 21 look the way it does, Deb?
21 is lower than other years because there's a grant from the health department that's helping fund it.
Yeah, which we don't expect to be ongoing. Now, this is an area where you actually do have an opportunity. We haven't talked about this for a while, but there's a choice the commissioners can make on how many triage beds they want to fund down there. And at one point we said, you can use all the money we've been dedicating to get X number of beds, or you could choose to have Y number of beds, something less than that, and save some funding. And there was the possibility to reduce this by some hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I'm remembering correctly. The trade-off, of course, is you're not providing as many beds if the need is there. Do you remember, Deb, how much we thought
Yeah, I think with the $800,000 a year, I think it's $80,000 a bed. I think we could do about 8 to 10. I'll check with Stephanie.
And then we need to know what's the, not the capacity, but what is also the fill of the RSS over the last few years. I'm very reluctant to take away any services when it comes to, curing addiction, but I'd like to know those numbers. And I know I've also been talking with the delegation down in 9 Alpha, Senator Hester, along with Maryland Health Department on potential funding for the RSS for those beds, trying to figure out a time and place to engage with Howard County to get them involved as well on a holistic plan from state and county programs, the Shoemaker House along with the RSS. But I'm nowhere near, a number right now. And I'm telling this to everybody. I'm just, it's conceptual, but I'm still working with the health department and others to try and come up with some sort of plan. At the end of the day, it may, take away some of the funding, but right now I'm not prepared to say it will.
I have to say, Ed, before you came on board, we met, myself and I can't remember who else, but we went with the state and Howard County to try to go in partnership with this. It seemed to be going forward very well. Then all of a sudden there was a pullout, and I don't recall the reason or something like that, but Howard County pulled back. They were no longer interested. If they're re-engaging in this, it'd be great. But I mean, I don't have any information on that.
Yeah, and no, Dennis, and I have that history as well. Understand that history. Met with state health twice in the past year, and most recently about 2-3 months ago. No, it must have been longer than that, probably 3-4 months ago. But again, there's potential for engagement, but it's all conceptual right now. I really am going to be hard pressed not to touch RSS, especially if we're at capacity there.
Yeah, Howard County got out of that because they had a large private enterprise come into their county, and that upped their ability to be able to have a lot of beds. And apparently that was really large, and they've got a huge capacity down there with that private. And I think that's why they pulled it, in order to use their money elsewhere, because it switched to private.
Yeah, and that was part of the conversation. You're right.
Hey, Ted, another area that we touched on but bounced off and left, and I don't remember exactly what the monies are or whether there's even any room to do anything with it, but that was the, and I'm saying this wrong, so help me out here, the healthcare cost savings that we are realizing, and isn't there a place where that's, there's some money set aside for something there? Could we refresh our memories on that particular area?
Yes. What you're talking about is because Carroll County is self-insured for our medical costs, we have what's called an internal service fund. That's where we actually pay the bills every year. So every year you put money into that fund, and as we pay bills, money comes out of the fund. Because we've had good experience for a good number of years now, that fund has gotten larger than we believe it needs to be. And part of the plan we brought to you had some things built into it to try and reduce the size of that fund. The commissioners could make a decision, though, to directly take money out of that fund towards some other purpose. Same caution as many other things we're talking about, though. You still have to look at this as one-time money. You can't keep going back to it every year to be able to fund dispatch positions, for example. So if you wanted to use it for some one-time purpose, that could make sense. If it's to fund something ongoing, I'd have to say we shouldn't be doing that.
So what would the specific number be of available funds comfortably to be able to use?
Okay, Deb, I think we were looking to draw down over time about $7 million, but part of that was built into the plan. So do you feel like you can answer that question? How much could be today?
Hold on one second.
Ted, could that money be allocated over the next several years out to help our bottom lines?
Yes, but it's the same problem we keep running into. What happens after that?
Understand that, Ted. I'm just, I get that. And I wouldn't want to try to make a mess here, but in the interim for the next 4 or 5 years, if it would be helpful, that was an area that I had, it's kind of my last area, if you will, that I had a star beside that perhaps could give us a little bit of relief if we took out of there what we would be comfortable with. That's all. Not robbing it beyond repair, but a comfortable release of some of those monies.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that part, and we absolutely can take money out of it. My concern isn't with the reducing that fund; it's with how we end up using the money. And you can see in the plan that we built in, what Deb was just showing you, row 123. You'll see, you know, we're basically underfunding for years to draw down on that fund. But you see how that diminishes to 50,000 and 35. We've built this in a way that we never run into a cliff. There's not a year where suddenly we've been paying for something with this money and now we no longer have it.
We also have $750,000 reductions in FY 24, 25, and 26, each of those years.
But Deb, if we didn't continue with this plan in favor of taking money out today, do you have a feeling for what could be available now? I'm thinking like $5 million, but I'm not comfortable with saying it.
Well, what's not programmed into the current 6-year plan is $3.6 million reductions. So 3.6 million.
Okay. All right. So Deb's point there is we've already planned pulling down the fund within the 6-year plan we're talking about. Everything that falls outside of that is about $3.5 million. So you could keep the same plan that's in place today and take $3.5 million immediately, or we could take more immediately, but we'd have to adjust what the rest of the plan looks like.
So why couldn't you take $3.5 million out of there if you're comfortable with that and spread it out and break it up? And again, I'm using layman's terms here. Spread that out over the next 6 years in our operating fund.
Because, and to use layman's terms, it's like taking money out of the bank that's going to cover the first 6 years of your mortgage without knowing how you're going to cover the other 24.
I'd get a better job, Ted, after those 6 years.
Renegotiate your mortgage.
And that's, you know, basically the same as what I said. You know, our revenue picture could get better. I just don't have any basis for telling you to build a plan, assuming it's going to, and by enough.
So it would be my feeling right now, or my thought, to take that 3.5 and spread it equally over the next 6 in our bottom line to see what maybe that would, to see what that would do.
Let's see what it looks like.
Well, if you're going to do it, there's probably not really a point in spreading it equally because you already have positives in the first years.
Yeah, you'd be spreading it wisely in 25, 26. I mean, I would think. But again, the mortgage analogy, you know, to me makes sense. And we're just not planning after 6 years. And it's not going to be a ramp, it's going to be a cliff. That this money's just not there.
Yes.
I don't like agreeing with you too often.
Sorry to put you in that position.
But to be blunt,
This makes it look a lot nicer.
to be blunt on this, I understand that, Ed and Ted, I get it. But we have always focused as a Board of Commissioners on 1+5. And I understand the past 6 thing. But man, we are in times right now where we got to focus on that 1, and especially 2 and 3. And then I get the 4 and 5, but we got to make decisions now. And with all due respect, future boards will have to deal with the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 years.
You know, with this line of thinking, commissioners, I said this previously, and I want to go back to it again. If we're not going to truly balance the plan, and by balancing, I don't mean find a way to get zeros in the bottom line here, but to say we believe our future revenues will cover our future expenditures. I would much rather you keep this unbalanced plan that says, here's what it is, so that we're not building an impression that we have created a balanced plan. You know, part of the difficulty here, like I said, it hasn't always been this way. This is something that's developed since the recession, as we were trying to figure out how to make things work. But if the balanced plan is working, every year this plan should have a little bit more money left on the bottom line than the earlier years, because there's more and more uncertainty the further you go out. What we've been doing in recent years is getting this plan to zeros. And we're doing that with short-term and one-time fixes, which means we are building that cliff that Commissioner Rothstein just referred to. I mean, we are with intent. I mean, not that we want to do it, but the implication of our decisions is, okay, we're making a cliff. We'll have to deal with it someday, but there it is.
Yeah, and I agree. I'd rather see the challenge in front of me, not, you know, by not pulling this type of money, see the challenge in front of me, and then knowing the following years, these are the things we need to do. I think we're impressed by getting to zeros, and we shouldn't be, because it's false, you know, it's a false, you know, picture past that. Yeah, I don't like this idea. I understand why we're doing it. I think we did it last year for different things. But okay.
I don't necessarily like it either, but again, with all due respect, look around what's happening. I think we've got to make these incredibly challenging decisions by continuing to know that we're in an incredibly challenging time. So while I don't agree with the concept of where we are, then I'm at a loss for getting to zeros, whatever, or having that, always increased line here. We just can't do that this year.
I agree.
But I'd rather pull money out of operational funds, so people know what they're getting ongoing. And that's why I brought up the nonprofit. I don't want to do that. But I mean, those are the type of things we need to be looking at, is to pull out of expenses that are ongoing now. So people at least know what their situation is now and will be. This, again, I'd rather see the road long-term in front of me than, again, falling off that cliff. I think we're saying the same thing. So, okay.
To your point, Commissioner Wance, I think the option that you have is to acknowledge we're not going to balance the plan, but just show that you're not balancing the plan rather than trying to fill in the gaps and leave zeros. And the reason I would rather do that is because then it's right in our face. We don't have balance. We don't have a plan that works right now. We have something we're going to have to figure out. And my hope would be that once we have a better picture of where we are in 21, that part of our thinking about 22 and beyond would be, how do we start to, over time, fix this picture? And it's not going to be an easy fix, and it's not going to be a quick fix. But the only way we're going to take any real shot at it, I think, is if we keep it in front of us and say, here's what we have to deal with. And also, and back to, a number of you have said, well, maybe what we have in front of us is our budget. If that is where we are, then you don't really need to do anything else. We don't need to move money from one place to another. You can balance the 21 budget that's on the table right now. You could just stop here.
Understood, but there's a couple things that, I get a sense that this dispatcher thing is very important to I believe it sounds like a majority of my colleagues here. And if that's the case, by that reduction of the health, the ISF health, it would help then to be able for us to just take a little bit out in order to make that happen. That's all that I'm trying to do here.
If you want to add those two positions, what I would suggest to you is you put them in. It's not going to unbalance 21 as things are, and you just acknowledge it's going to make all the other years worse by that amount. There's nothing we can do to truly fix that picture. So I don't see any point in trying to kind of make it prettier. And you,
Ted, the budget in front of you, are you pretty happy up to 25, what you're seeing as far as the bottom line?
Was that to me?
Yes.
Well, no. I mean, 25 and 26 are negative. Well, it depends on, look at 21, 22, 23, 24. You have declining revenue on these projections. You have declining revenue. That's backwards. But I'm saying if you feel like you need to add these two positions, and I understand and agree, we need them. I have no argument against the need, but if you're going to act on it, I'd say go act on it. We will adjust the numbers. It's not going to fundamentally change the picture. There's no need to do anything to try and make it look like it's not a bigger problem, because it is a bigger problem. But it could be okay to say, we're willing to accept that.
Hey, Ted, I was wondering one other thing here. We do have one-time money. Do we have requests for one-time money that's coming up? Maybe we could look at that, kind of change the way we're going a little bit, get a break from looking at the operating budget. What needs do we have for one-time money that we actually have one-time money that we can do something with? Do we have anything like that? I mean, it's actually getting close to lunchtime. I guess Steve saw it, but maybe you could look at that over at the break and get us back when we come back. We're saying these are one-time money requests because we can actually fill those slots, and we're not damaging the out years with that because we do have that $13 million of one-time money to look at.
Hey, yes, I'm sure there are one-time requests, and yes, you can look at it that way. Just don't lose sight of there's strong arguments to hang on to that money because we don't know what's going to be happening. We almost certainly are going to need some of it for fiscal year 20. We don't know exactly how much that's going to be. My hope is we won't need any of it in 21, but we don't know that yet.
Well, I'm not saying, just look at what it is. Let's see what we may be interested in funding. I'm not saying using anywhere near all of that money, but there are probably some things that we can hit, and at least we can go off to that avenue for a little bit and then come back to operating because we're kind of at impasse on operating, I think.
Yeah, that one-time money, I think, would be better to be looked at in September than now. With uncertainty out there, you hate to reduce your reserves for something that, we may need. Right now, we really can't say, yes, this is good or this is bad.
I'm against using any one-time money at this point on anything. All right, well, why don't we take a break? It's 12:18. Eric, I don't know, you're still on, right? You're good?
I keep going in and out. I keep losing the audio a lot.
Okay. Maybe you could work your magic to try to tweak that until 2 p.m. We'll see. But why don't we take a break? I think we've got several options out here. I was getting ready to make a motion as a placeholder to take that health ISF and plug it in.
Motion to recess till 2 p.m.
You dissed my motion, Commissioner Rothstein?
Second.
Second on what? Recessing?
Recessing, yes.
Okay. All right, I've got a motion and a second to recess until 2 p.m. Everybody in favor of that? I can't see everybody. Eric, give me your thumbs. Since Ed, there we go. Okay. See you all at 2 o'clock. Thanks.